There we go. Hello, everyone. So today I got with me the Jewish voluntarist, right? That was your Twitter handle? And you're one of the people that I follow on Twitter. And are you engaged in social media elsewhere as well, or just on Twitter?
No, just Twitter. Yeah, I mean, even when I started Twitter, to be honest, I wasn't even trying to go into the political world of it. But I ended up getting into it, and it's been fantastic. I'm loving it, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. Me personally, I actually had took up Twitter to follow a professional soccer team.
Oh, nice.
And then much later on, I got into discussing various things, discussing religion with some people, and discussing politics with some others. It's like there are various niches within the Twitter sphere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, man, how did you stumble upon libertarianism, and what were your views prior to you being a libertarian?
Yeah, so I got into politics, I don't know, I guess maybe a little late. I was like 18, 19, and I didn't care too much for it, but I kind of like this idea of socialism. I was like, that sounds really good. Let me do that. I like that. Let me focus on that. So I don't know. I'd say I was a socialist for a little bit, and then the more I started talking to people, the more I realized, no, this is ridiculous. This would never work in real life. So I kind of became like a Republican. My parents are Republicans. My sister's a Republican, and so I started looking into that. I'm like, yeah, lower taxes, blah blah blah. That's good. And then I started. I don't know if you've heard of Greg Gutfeld.
No, I don't think so.
So he's on Fox News, and he calls himself libertarian. I mean, so I heard him say, "Yeah, I'm a libertarian." I was like, "Oh, what is that?" So that sounds very interesting. So I looked into that, and that piqued my interest. And he's not. I wouldn't even call him a libertarian. He's more of like probably a constitutionalist, but he called himself a libertarian, and ever since then, I just kept going, and that's pretty much how I became a libertarian.
How about after him? Who did you come across next? Was there how about Austria libertarianism in particular? Who was it that triggered your interest?
So what happened with me was I was a hardcore minarchist for a very long time. So after I left becoming a Republican, I became a minarchist, and so I was a big fan of Milton Friedman. Even though I thought some sort of level of, you're a minarchist too, right? Are you a minarchist or?
Well, I just gone through Hoppe's book recently, and really shaked up my minarchist beliefs, to say the least.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so with me, pretty much, I was a minarchist, and then when I came onto Twitter, I was a minarchist until maybe even like 6-7 months ago. Maybe a little bit more than that. I was speaking with someone on Twitter, and anarchists, for some reason, I don't know why, but they're very into themselves, and they, in my opinion at least, and they tend to be a little like assholes in a way, But this person was very nice. She really wanted to explain how everything worked, and it really opened my eyes up a little bit. So from there, I started looking up. I wouldn't say any one person has influenced me. I'm a big fan of Mises, Rothbard, Locke, and then, but for me, it's been more watching I've seen a lot of videos on from the Mises Institute online. What's his name? Robert Murphy. Big fan of his. I really like. I don't know if you've seen his video. He has a video on how society would work without the current prison system that we have.
I think I've seen parts of that.
Parts of it, yeah. That was very interesting to me. And the more I got looked into it, and it became more of a moral issue for me. When I was reading Rothbard, I realized the state it's an entity straight up that uses force, and I try to be moral in any way that I can, and I never really thought of it that way until I started reading a little bit of Rothbard, and I was like, this really makes sense. So I became a voluntarist. I don't think the state should exist. I think some form of government is needed, but that government should be funded voluntarily.
Oh, I see. No, but now that you've become, let's say, an anarcho-capitalist, that does not necessarily mean that you're now anti-minarchist, right? I mean,
No.
minarchists are still in your camp of, political leaning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the difference, right? Minarchists believe in force and coercion for the big three. What is it? Police, courts, and military. But yeah, I'd rather live in a minarchist society than live in the current society that we're living 100%. But even constitutionalists, I think they have the potential of realizing much better than the socialists, for example, that we need more freedom, not less. So I'd consider anyone who's pretty much a constitutionalist all the way to the right to be in my camp, because I think we need more friends, not foes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but talking about some other libertarians and the other guy you mentioned, one thing I was going to ask you, and leading to the next topic I was going to discuss, was did you get to watch any of the debates leading to the nomination of the Libertarian Party leader?
I think I watched the second one before they announced what's her name is going to be the nominee. I watched that one. They pretty much all said the same thing. They were all fighting for freedom. My thought process with Joe and everyone else in the Libertarian Party is that libertarians are such individualists that I feel it's very difficult for a community of libertarians to get along, especially since every libertarian has their own opinion. And I think that hurdle is something that libertarians and anarchists, even anarchists who don't believe in voting, who believe that it's a moral issue, need to come and work together and realize that we're not enemies. The state's the enemy. So I don't know. That's my thought process on it.
But for me, when I was watching the debates, there seemed to be a contrast between Hornberger, who seemed to me as a principled libertarian, and all the rest. And some of them you even doubted whether or not they were even a libertarian.
We're talking about... that's the thing. What do you mean by libertarian? Minarchist?
Well, imagine if a person calls himself a libertarian and has no clue who Mises was, who Rothbard was, who some of these intellectual giants were. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's sufficient,
That makes sense, yeah. What's his name? The guy with the boot on his head.
Vermin Supreme.
Yeah, Vermin Supreme. He sounded like a real libertarian, or lowercase L, capital L, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. They were all pretty much, from my perspective, at least from what I recall, because I guess I wasn't fully paying attention to it. They all wanted to shrink government. Whoever has the highest chance of because going to a minarchist society, even, it's not going to happen with one election, 2 elections. It's something that I think is going to take 15, 20, maybe 30 years to fully accomplish the hole that we're in. We have to get out of this hole that we're in, and especially with all this printing now, we're just digging ourselves into a bigger hole. So, for me, at the end of the day, whoever believes in freedom and is for reducing government, I'm all for it.
So you think committing to elections and showing up at the polls is the way to our goal, or do you think we should perhaps abstain from voting altogether?
I haven't voted. I haven't voted in a very long time because I haven't realized if voting either is effective or not, or is it a moral issue. I think that libertarians need to do whatever they can from all different perspectives. One route being voting, one route being agorism, one route being what else is there? Yeah, free market collapsitarian or whatever the route they want to take. I think we need to do whatever we can to hopefully get to that point.
Mm. But think about another way. Imagine if somebody big like Joe Rogan, somebody who has significant amount of clout and influence over people, at least in the cyber world nowadays. Imagine if somebody like that was into these kinds of beliefs or ideas. Imagine how many people around the world could be impacted by that. I mean, I know Dave Smith has been on his podcast several times, but I don't know if they talked about anything related to that.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan. Yeah, I think Joe Rogan might be a libertarian, even though he maybe wouldn't fully admit it. I mean, I heard he supported Bernie, but then he also supported. I heard he supported some libertarian candidate in the past. So
yeah, Ron Paul.
Oh, he supported Ron Paul?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know it was Ron Paul. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it would change. I think it could change the world. I mean, how many followers, how many people watch Rogan? But I don't know why. I feel like if anyone were to say something like that, they'd be worried about their reputation. I mean, there's nothing wrong about being a libertarian, obviously, but people make it negative, like the media, etc., give it a negative twist, and maybe they're afraid of being canceled. I don't know, but I'm sure there are some, big podcasters that are libertarian, but they just might be worried. I don't know, like actors. Like I feel like a lot of actors are more on the right than they say they are, but they lie about it because they want to continue working,
I think me personally, me being turned into Austro-libertarianism, it was through Joe Rogan's podcast, actually. And it was episode 1002, and I totally recommend you all to check out. It was when he had Peter Schiff on. Do you know who that guy is?
Yeah, I follow him. Yeah.
I mean, that was a really good presentation. It was like a couple hours long, and I watched it, and then after that, I just had to search up what Peter Schiff was all about, and that's where I found out about the Mises Institute and all the rest. And I decided to, I want to learn on my own. Apart from being a student, a poli-sci major, actually, I want to learn on my own and try to find out what arguments these people present, because a lot of it seemed very persuasive to me.
1002. I'll check it out.
1002, yeah. And you call yourself a Jewish voluntarist. Do you think there's any? I know David Gordon of the Mises Institute. I got through like quarter way through the lecture he gave about Judaism and capitalism was the title of the lecture. Do you think there's any relation or anything that could support the free market system by scriptural reference?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. There's a video with Milton Friedman, I think from like 30 years ago, and I forgot the name of the person, but asked him a question about Jews and capitalism. So, and Jews and socialism, because, I mean, Marx was Jewish. I mean, he converted out of it, but, he was Jewish, so he founded socialism, the founder of socialism. So what Friedman was saying was that about like 2,000 years ago, 25 around Christ, Jews weren't doing well in regards to taxation. There were always heavy taxes, whether it was Christians or whether it was Islam. Much later, we tend to be very suppressed through taxation. So what he's saying that a lot of Jews did at the time was they did whatever they could to do business, avoiding taxes, avoiding regulations, and so he's saying that kind of became our bloodline in regards to that, and over time. So from scripture itself, I was reading into it. The original Jews, like I guess the Hebrews, they were kind of an anarchist society. They didn't have a king. They didn't have anything like that. They just had judges that the community appointed, and the judges would, excuse me, the judges would decree whatever they saw, whatever the situation was. And then I think it was Samuel. During Samuel's time, a little bit later, the people went to Samuel and said, "Hey, we want a king. We do want a king." And Samuel said to them, "Look, if you have a king, he's going to tax you. He's going to take your women. He's going to send you to war." Excuse me. And then they said, "We don't care." I don't know why. They said, "We don't care." So he said, "Okay. All right, so I'll elect a king." So he went and elected a king. And then, yeah, so I mean, we started off as anarchists, became hardcore socialists, and then kind of had capitalism in our blood when we were, taken over by all the different countries that took over that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reference to Samuel, I've seen that twice actually in Thomas Paine in his book Common Sense. He makes a reference to that, but also Frank Chodoroff. This guy wrote The Root of All Evil. I don't know if you ever come across that book. The Root of All Evil, yeah, where he basically makes the case against the 16th Amendment, the income tax.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, but
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but David Gordon's lecture, I thought, dude, that would be just a great title for a book, even one that I would even consider myself purchasing.
I haven't seen that one. Give me the title again.
David Gordon, Judaism and Capitalism. If you search it up on YouTube, it should come up. Yeah. But so, what do you expect the outcome of this election to be this year?
Trump's going to win in a landslide.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I think that a lot of maybe a couple blue states that have been blue for a while might turn red. But who knows?
You think LP is going to make any more advancements in comparison to the past?
Yes, it looks like every election the libertarian vote quantity has been increasing, but I don't think it's going to really make much of a dent.
But I feel like it's another missed opportunity, Like the last election cycle, and perhaps this one too. The Libertarian Party could have just, exploited this chance and just delivered a smack,
But they can't even get on the debate stage. How are they going to do anything?
Remember, I don't know if you ever seen Dave Smith debate with the Libertarian Party chairman, Nick Sarwark. Dave put up a really good performance, and he made the case that the key to the success of libertarians is to present our radical way or radical approach or radical principles. or rather, what we get is just this, watered down version of libertarianism. That's more palatable, apparently, for the common voter.
I mean, if you go to the common voter and say, but yeah, it's definitely more, because if you go to the common voter and say, hey, I think we should get rid of the Federal Reserve, he or she's going to be like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you want to abolish money? Like, what does that mean? So I think that in order to get to that point, we need someone like any one of these libertarians who is willing to, like, at least Joe's looking to get rid of qualified immunity, get people who are in prison for nonviolent crimes out of prison. She wants to lower taxes, fix Social Security. Like, if she's willing to get us a little bit to the right, I think there's a higher possibility of actually accomplishing our goal as opposed to just jumping and trying to get to the ultimates. I think we have to walk before we can run, essentially, if we're willing to get the country to where we want it to be.
I think what people fear is that by walking, could we possibly also be compromising, and admitting policies that we would be diametrically opposed to. How they present these omnibus bills in front of the president's desk, and within it there would be certain policies that the president would support, and a whole bunch of policies that he or she would not support.
Yeah, but someone like Joe or most of the people who were trying to be the nominee, they're not, based off at least what I'm saying, they're not the type that would want to sign these types of bills. I mean, they all want to slash government, Or no, or if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I don't think they want to expand. They all want to shrink it, and I just don't think we could go to the American people and say, let's get rid of the Federal Reserve, let's privatize roads overnight. I just don't think realistic that I mean, I would love it, don't get me wrong, I would love that, but the end game, I'm thinking the end game, and I think you need to walk a little. I think we need to walk a little bit, especially with public schools. They're so bad. Are you in the U.S.?
I'm in Canada, actually.
Oh, you're in Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about Canadian schools, but public schools in the U.S. are just terrible. They're just terrible, and they haven't even thought anything like this. And I don't think we can flip a switch that quickly for most Americans or even most Canadians.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of dialing back to do, right? Because what seems to end up happening in democracies is there's over time there's a persistent accumulation of legislation, right? Like, instead of abolishing and erasing previous legislation, a new administration seems to come in and just put new legislation on top of previous legislation. So this law book or this pile of legislations just seems to keep stacking up and up and up. Several decades in, it's just more restrictions, more regulations, and less liberty.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully a libertarian president, if ever elected, would follow the goals that they set forth and try to shrink government, not eliminate.
But I mean, this system of government that we like to promote, like we like to advocate. Even if you look at the world freedom rankings, like the one provided by the World Bank or the one by the Heritage Foundation, even if you look at the top 10 countries, I mean, those are countries that still have, a government that intervenes quite extensively within their own economy. So I feel like if there was any country in the world that was anything sort of quasi-laissez-faire, I mean, they would perhaps, if given enough time with the accumulation of capital and with the subsequent productivity that could come about, it just ace these rankings, just rush straight up there.
What country do you think would be able to, which country that exists right now has the highest probability of becoming a truly free society?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know which country in particular, but if you look at the the ease of doing business index, New Zealand is first, and they've been first this year and a couple of years prior as well. And then it's usually Hong Kong or Switzerland following them. And in the most recent rankings, Canada actually came in at 23rd, which is Canada's lowest ranking in the history of this chart.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean,
sorry, can you give me 1 second?
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry. Thanks, man. Hey, man, sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah. Well, Jewish volunteers, is that what I should call you, or do you gotta?
Yeah, you can call me JV.
Oh, all right, JV. Well, thanks for your time, eh? This has been. I learned something about you. I guess you provided some insight too, and try to try to expand and make wholesome our knowledge of politics and our worldview. Tell us, I guess, tell us about where people can find you and what work you try to promote and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, my Twitter is at libertarian Jew. I'm not online too much other than Twitter, but yeah, feel free to follow me, and hopefully we can all learn from each other.
All right. Thanks for your time, eh? Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.